It's the Josh and Josh podcast, featuring your hosts, Josh. And we're talking about wrestling today.
Josh, I think we had mentioned before, just as kind of for fun, like a sort of a what-if scenario, a possible Legends House Season 2. And Josh, for those that don't know what Legends House is, how would you describe Legends House?
You take a bunch of WWE legends. I think they were all Hall of Famers, I believe. And you put them in a house together for a month, a very nice house that apparently used to belong to Harpo Mark. And you put it in there, and this is, of course, a reality show that was on the WWE Network, hosted by a woman named Ashley Roberts. The boys would have activities to do, some competitions for fun, but mostly it provided a real... I felt that it provided a real insight into a lot of these WWE legends.
Especially with Pat Patterson.
I was thinking Pat Patterson had a real breakthrough there. He ended up coming out, and it was a very emotional moment. And you saw like these guys who've known each other for years. That's the most interesting thing. It's one thing to see, say, Roddy Piper or Hacksaw Jim Duggan in an interview situation or in a documentary or things like that. It's another to see these guys all interacting with each other off the cuff. And I mean, I know that most reality TV is still very produced. This had a very natural, organic feel to it. I mean, aside from these silly games that they had the guys playing and things like that, I didn't get any kind of impression that there was a producer off camera trying to instigate disagreements or trying to push someone in a certain way. It was just everybody's natural personalities playing out. Roddy Piper is kind of a little more hermit-like. He's not used to being around people a lot, so that caused all kinds of drama. Pat Patterson came out. Howard Finkel's trying to do his exercise. Jimmy Hart behaves exactly like Jimmy Hart does on WWE television. It's extraordinary. And it's so great seeing all this stuff. And for anybody who hasn't watched it, I say watch it. Go give it a shot. Even if you don't like reality shows, I don't like 90% of reality shows, but I really enjoyed this because it was a fascinating look into some of these WWE legends. And so I'm really excited that we're now going to do a hypothetical casting for Legends House 2, which maybe one day that'll happen. That would be really great because I think it's a great idea. It was a great show.
Yeah, and I think that you have to sort of think, we're thinking hypothetical here. What direction would it go? You brought up a really good point where everyone in the last Legends House was, in fact, a Hall of Famer. So if that's the way they're maybe going to go with this, well, that's going to sort of narrow choices down. But let's sort of assume that really anyone that's any type of legend could be on this type of show. One thing I would like to see, because what I really liked about the Legends House, the first season, was that it was very retrospective. It was a lot of these guys that had worked together for decades, and they're sort of just reliving, not necessarily reliving, but retelling and sort of just, again, having this retrospective discussions about how things used to be and how they sort of turned out and so on and so forth. And we get to hear a lot of great stories and all that. One thing that I think would be great is if you sort of mix the age range up a bit. So maybe you have some of the older wrestlers, but maybe you have some of the other maybe younger legends, like maybe the Chris Jericho or maybe like a Kevin Nash if you want to say younger or something.
Interesting. Okay.
But or even like maybe a Scott Hall or that type of thing. I would kind of like to see more of maybe like a mixture with that, and maybe have some repeats. Why not? Like have some other repeats from the first season and mix it up a little bit. My thing about it is you would of course like to see like Ric Flair, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Hulk Hogan. But would they feel that they're or would maybe WWE feel that they're too big for a show like this? That's the direction they're going to have to decide on. If they really want to put this show over, they're going to have people like Hulk Hogan on Legends House, people like Flair, people like Kevin Nash, people like Shawn Michaels. But if they think they're too big for the show, then they have to sort of go at a different level. But that's the direction I would go with this. Just kind of maybe bring some wrestlers maybe back from Legends House 1. Maybe bring sort of a different multiple age range. And is there an opportunity to maybe include some female superstars in Legend House 2 as well, too? Maybe have separate homes or something like that,
I was thinking that would be very interesting.
Yeah.
Now, did you make a specific list?
That was my list. I think I just...
In my list, one of the guys I added to try and... I had thought a little bit of young blood, too. Booker T. Who's I know he's no spring chicken. But yeah, well, I guess we can start with Booker T. He's got to have a lot of stories. I can see Booker T, as being the guy that maybe he gets a couple drinks in him and he's just talking and
Shucky ducky quack
and
quack.
and talking, and then like someone else is just like, I gotta get away from Booker, because I'm basing everything from my list on the first one, but taking it up a notch and trying to step forward. You know what I mean? So additional to that, you were talking about trying to go with an upper echelon, slightly more popular superstars, right? Because I think last year. I think last time in the first Legends House, one could argue that Roddy Piper was probably the top dog there in terms of popularity.
Yeah, you could definitely say that.
Right.
Of course, Hacksaw Jim Duggan is very iconic as well too. But you're right. I think that Piper was more of a frequent worker, not necessarily worker, but he would be cutting promos. Was doing Piper cuts Piper's Pits.
Piper's Pits, yeah.
Piper's Pit, doing several of those.
Right.
But Hacksaw Jim Duggan's just one of those iconic characters. But you're right.
I'd call him a close second, Hacksaw, right next to Piper in that list.
Yep.
So I was thinking we could get someone like that, but step it up just a little bit for my number 2 pick, Ric Flair. So Ric Flair, I mean, that guy, a man of 1,000 stories, a man of 1,000 women. How can you go wrong?
Right.
I don't think I have to say much more about Ric Flair on that. Like, it's just get him in there; it'll be great.
Well, yeah, and to your point, so I had thought about this before. I really do thank you for being professional. You got a whole list out. I sort of have these in my head, but yeah, I'd mentioned Ric Flair before. I think to that end, it'd be great to have Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan in the same season, and actually, it'd be great to triangulate that with a Bret Hart. I think Bret Hart would be great. I think there's a lot, and actually, what if you had Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels in one season, maybe Ric Flair and Hogan in another? Or you could have all 4 in the next season. That would be awesome. But again, I think it's sort of how they decide to go with that. And I think if they really want to make the show big, and I think that there's the platform for it is there, I think they could really make this awesome. I think it'd be great to include like bigger names like that. But to your end, as far as like someone like a Booker T, kind of thinking back on Tough Enough as well, and also sort of a legend in their own right, Billy Gunn. I think Billy Gunn would be someone that's going to have a lot of stories. I don't know that what his official status is. He's able to come back and work Raw 25 and the whole DX, Too Sweet, Bullet Club deal they had going on there in Madison Square Garden. Yeah, I know that obviously there was some controversy with him, losing his job, but I don't know if he could come back for like a season or something.
Ron Simmons.
Damn! Yeah, dude. Ron Simmons, man. He's a guy that I grew up knowing him as Farouk.
Yeah, for sure.
And I remember saying like how I was like, oh yeah, I was telling this one guy, this is when I was working with CFWA, Cedar Falls Wrestling Alliance. I was like, yeah, The Rock is the first black world champion. He's like, dude, you don't know what you're talking about. It's Ron Simmons. I'm like, who's Ron Simmons? He's like, Farouk. And I go, oh, whoa. And then I went and saw the video of him beating Vader. And I'm like, that was awesome. And it's one of those things where I know a lot about wrestling, but always learning, and I felt really stupid. Now I was much younger. I think that those types of things weren't maybe as advertised back then, and it's great that it is being advertised because it's a huge moment in wrestling history. It was very pivotal for a lot of different reasons. But yes, I think Ron Simmons, he has seen a lot of things, and I think it'd be great to have him in the Legends House Season 2. I
think he'd lend a lot to it. I think he'd have a lot of great stories about him and JBL. I would not see. The thing is, I would not want JBL in Legends House because I feel his personality would just try and dominate everybody. So I think Ron Simmons instead, he would be able to supply us with some JBL stories and things like that.
I'll do you one better on that. You actually brought up a really good point. So yeah, definitely Ron Simmons should be on Legends House Season 2. I actually think JBL should be, and I'll explain why. Because that dynamic would be a bit monopolizing, but I think Ron Simmons, if in the same season, could hone it in. So I think he could actually bring it in a little bit. So I think that you want to see a JBL because it would be entertaining, right? That's a whole idea behind reality TV. But that being said, I think if you had Ron Simmons, he could definitely craft it in a way where he is sort of this conduit to relaxation on the show, the way to break JBL.
That'd be cool. Okay,
what else do you have? Let's hear what you have.
Now stick with me here because of I know that just maybe like 3 years ago or something this would have been completely unheard of, but in light of recent Hall of Fame events it could be possible to get Jim Cornette. Can you imagine? Because I'm sure you can imagine. He's filling the Jimmy Hart role for me.
Oh.
Jim Cornette. Get another Jim in there.
That would be pretty awesome. I do like, and that talk about a real podcast.
Oh,
like
my
Jim
gosh,
Cornette, when he just goes off, he just goes off. And I always remember as a kid, I grew up when he was sort of the, Camp Cornette, where you had Yokozuna and British Bulldog and Owen Hart and Clarence Mason and Vader. And then Shawn Michaels sort of ran roughshod all over the whole thing. But, I always remember Camp Cornette and just thinking, like, wow, this is the guy that's really, like, the main guy to it. It was never Vader. It was never Owen Hart. It was never Yokozuna or any of those guys. It was always, Jim Cornette. I mean, obviously they call it Camp Cornette, so he was ahead of it. Sure. But he was the cornerstone because of his promos, the heat he could generate. He was actually, I would say he's maybe second to Vicky Guerrero, was able to get that instant heat from the crowd. I don't think anyone does it better than Vicky Guerrero, but I think Jim Cornette, and I'm honest about that. I think Vicky Guerrero, I think she really knows how to generate heat, but Jim Cornette, in my opinion, was also kind of a close number 2, where he's really able to get under your skin. But yeah, no, that's an excellent choice, man.
I think that'd be a lot of fun. Like, it'd be interesting. If they really wanted to do this cast that I said, let's say hypothetically, it'd be interesting because I'm imagining he's probably pissed off maybe half the list I have at some point with something he said, so that would be something to take into account. Next up, last time we had Pat Patterson. How about this time we get Gerald Brisco?
Yeah.
The other half of the Stooges.
Yeah, the other half of the Stooges. That's the brilliance of, like, WWE, is that, like, they could take legends and make them bigger than they were in their heyday, like the Stooges.
Sure.
Which is just unbelievable when you think about Pat Patterson or Gerald Brisco. I mean, we're talking about 2 classics who really, it's guys like that kept WWE, WWF moving full steam ahead. So it's guys like that they're able to take those classic characters and make them even bigger than they were in their heyday. Something like WCW couldn't. That's why WCW, not to go on a tangent, ultimately failed, because as DDP said, they lacked innovation. They got someone like a Bret Hart, and they couldn't do anything with the Bret Hart. Like, we're talking, this is what Bret Hart just needs to walk out, and all the fans go nuts. But you would mess that up.
Yeah.
You messed that up. And Bret Hart all the while was like, hey, I'm still getting paid. Like, he showed up to events and would go up to Eric Bischoff and be like, hey, what are we doing? And Eric Bischoff would be like, oh, we're going to get to you here in a second. And Bret's like, hey, at the end of the day, I'm still getting paid. But it's like, I'm sure he was bummed he didn't get to wrestle. And he, after what, the whole thing with WWE, leaving with, at the time WWE leaving the way he did, I'm sure he wanted to actually show that he was doing much better. Now, I've mentioned before, and I don't mean to be a conspiracy theorist. I honestly believe the Montreal Screwjob is just that. It's a job. I believe that Vince McMahon, I believe HBK, I believe Bret Hart all knew what was going on. All 3 of them did terrific after that event. The Mr. McMahon character came out of it. Stone Cold Steve Austin was able to bounce off that, and so on and so forth. But that's something that I believe it was fully planned to this day. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. Yeah, I mean, I think that when you got those types of superstars, it's just that WWE is able to, as far as do so many more things and make them even bigger than their heyday. That's where WCW was lacking. But to your point, boy, did I go on a tangent. Back to your point, good, though, I think Gerald Brisco would be great on Legends House 2.
Like, because I don't know a whole heck of a lot about Gerald Brisco. I think, like most people our age, our exposure was as the Stooges. And we catch little glimpses, we hear about things about his past, and I think Legends House does a really great job of like summing up a lot of people. Like Pat Patterson, it did a great job of explaining Pat Patterson. While we got to know him in the present, we also heard about the past, and I'd love to see that with Gerald Brisco again.
Yeah, no, I think that this list you got here is killer so far with Legends House. I would even say like it's kind of some nostalgia, some fun things. Maybe add like a Barry Horowitz. I think it'd be great.
Hey.
I'm thinking like a Barry Horowitz, because I've always wanted to hear from like perspective of jobbers.
Sure.
Because they've seen so many things, and also maybe get like a referee.
Oh, hey. I was thinking that, but what's his name is disgraced from WWE.
Yeah, well,
he would have been the choice.
Earl Hebner.
He would be the guy. Earl Hebner would be the guy to get, but he's disgraced.
I
guess you could do Nick Robinson, maybe. He's been around a while.
Yeah, or just do Mike Chioda. I mean,
Mike Chioda.
I mean, you can still have legends that are currently working, right? Like, why not? Yeah, I think even like a Mike Chioda would be kind of cool to see, like a referee. Because think of all the stories they could tell you,
right?
I mean, or Jimmy Corderas, he could be a good one, but of course, he's not really with WWE, and he hasn't been for a while. But yeah, I don't know. I think that but yeah, in terms of like I think it'd be also great to see some females as well too. And I don't know how that would work necessarily. Maybe it could be two separate homes.
Yeah.
Or in some of these real worlds they have just as far as all under the same roof. It's just they have like different wings. So maybe that's the way they go about it. So, and then I think that actually that's good because then obviously the genders have their own separate wings, but then they come together, and that's where you get to see some of those interesting interactions. And I think that you'd actually see a better arc. You'll see more depth to the show when you not only have different ages, as I mentioned before, different ages among like the male wrestlers, but also now you're including different genders as we probably should because there's a lot to discuss here. And I honestly think there's so many legends to go around. To have an all-male or an all-female season.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, why not just mix it up? And I think there's a better dynamic, and I think that there's things to be learned from both sides. And I just think that, and I don't mean to sound like this campaign slogan, but we are definitely official. I think we always are better together.
Sure.
And when we have more, more diverse and different perspectives.
No doubt about it. And it, like I had actually toyed with the idea of having a women's Legends house as well. My idea was you have two separate houses.
Okay.
And they have when they do the challenges, it's the men versus women and their teams. And Corey Graves leads the guys' house. Renee Young leads the women's house.
Okay,
I think that
cool.
right. I feel I was just like, that writes itself.
Yeah.
I think that would be like a really interesting thing. So yeah, because I totally agree. Yeah, and there are plenty of legends like. Trish Stratus,
right?
Lita, those are just like because they're recent. They popped up recently. Molly Holly, maybe.
I mean, to hear that pop she got for the Battle Royal, she was always. She actually when it was like sort of divas wrestling and whatnot, she was actually wrestling. I always remember her and her matches, and I felt like, wow, she should be running this thing. She actually is working this match. I actually believe her as like a wrestler. Not just like this model, not just as like this, as far as diva per se at the time. To me, she was like an actual women, like female worker. I always thought she should have been much bigger than she really was. Yeah, but that pop she got, I know I'm not the only one that feels that way. That pop she got, people remembered her. Yeah. People knew her. Yeah, no, so I definitely think that there's a bit of that. While she may not be a Hall of Famer yet, while she may not be, I think, an official ambassador, I think Legend, you could be a little bit loose on it in terms of you've maybe done legendary things, although you're not in the Hall of Fame.
Right.
But no, I think you could with her.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. What else you got on your list?
Jake the Snake.
Oh,
Roberts.
Wow.
I think he would be great. His soft-spoken style, his whole Phoenix-like recovery to get back on his feet. All that good stuff. You put that in with the other boys, I think he'd have a great time, and I think we would too.
Yep.
What else can I say? And besides, who doesn't love Jake the Snake?
Yeah, no, he's done this he's been doing spoken word. I guess it's a kind of technical one-man sort of like a hybrid of a one-man show / retrospective / kind of like spoken word type thing he's doing.
Right.
I think his tour is still going on, but yeah, he'd be a good addition. It's interesting you mentioned Jake the Snake because I was thinking sort of along the same lines who's now a little more reformed, but he would have similar stories.
Yeah.
As Jake the Snake would be maybe Ted DiBiase, the $1 Million Man.
Aha! It's funny you mentioned that because he was my other pick.
I took him.
Jake the Snake and Ted. Yeah, Ted DiBiase. Yeah, for the same reason exactly. Way to jump the gun, guy. Gee whiz.
But you mentioned you mentioned a couple Lita and whatnot. I think it'd be cool, Lita and Trish Stratus. I think it'd be great to see Alundra Blayze.
Yeah.
And I grew up with Alundra Blayze, so I was kind of when I saw her throw the title away on Nitro, I was like, oh my gosh, why did she do that? Because that's just that's who I knew. I mean, really, it's sort of a sad time when I was watching wrestling for, at least on a perspective of females, because really growing up, I remember sort of 20 matches between Alundra Blayze and Bertha Faye, with Harvey Whippleman as the manager, because it just wasn't a thing. It was just sort of, in women's wrestling, there was a women's champion, but I swear it was defended once every maybe 6 months. It just wasn't very well televised. They did have, in the 80s, I believe, they had the women's tag tag team championship and whatnot. But again, things weren't as mediated. I mean, with wrestling and so much in the 80s, it was, of course, with like WrestleMania and closed circuit TV and pay-per-view kind of rolling out and whatnot, but there wasn't like Monday Night Raws. There wasn't Nitros necessarily.
Right.
There were some TV shows, but it was sort of, if you were in that region, you might have gotten it. So, right, it definitely wasn't as accessible as it is today. Yeah, I remember like Alundra Blayze. So when she actually threw away that championship on Nitro, that was a big deal for me. But anyway, I think from her perspective, I bet she's got a lot of things she could share.
I mean, like I had said before, there's one thing to interview somebody, and there's another thing for them to be around their old friends, reminiscing about old times, talking about old stories. You know what I mean? You're going to get a totally different experience because they're going to be in a totally different mode of thought. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, you're going to catch them off guard, and they're going to say something very interesting or some stories that you've never heard before. You know, like Pat Patterson felt comfortable enough to come out. I mean, that's amazing. You know, like, yeah. And what I love is they didn't sensationalize it.
Right.
They, you know, at least I don't remember them, you know, really puffing it up in any way. I'm not saying somebody needs to come out every season or something like that.
Right.
But, you know, like it's really, it's amazing. It facilitates these moments like that is what I'm getting at, I guess.
No, you're absolutely right. But, no, I like how you'd go with that, sort of like this kind of mix, because I think that we've got enough legends, make it open for everyone. And I think that we'll see even better stories, like different dynamics, different discussions. It's going to unpack some things, probably about pay. Why not? Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, you're going to see pay between, like, the different age ranges. Like, well, back in my day and back in your day. But then you're also going to have women like, hey, back in all of our days, we made less than you. But that's, you know, obviously going to change here. Yeah, you know, it's one of those things that I'd like to think that WWE is definitely, with the whole women's evolution, that women are getting paid the same as men. Obviously not true in some levels. I don't think there's any female wrestler that's getting paid $8 million a year.
No.
Maybe, I don't know, maybe Ronda Rousey's getting some, but I don't know that she's getting $8 million. But plus, she's somewhat officially retired from UFC. I guess she's in the Hall of Fame. She can still wrestle, or I'm sorry, still fight. You've seen like people like Randy Couture, who's in the Hall of Fame. Definitely Randy Couture did. So it wouldn't be unheard of to have someone, you know, do that, even if they're in the UFC Hall of Fame. But you have to imagine that she is, you know, she's a draw. And I've said it before. I think she's delivering in the ring.
Oh, definitely.
Given that she's, you know, I'm not surprised though. I mean, obviously she's former champion UFC, Hall of Famer, and UFC. She's she was in the Olympics. She did judo. She's trained all her life for this, and so I'm not surprised that she would be able to adapt to the in-ring style that you've seen. So I'm going on a tangent here, but I'd like to think that WWE recognizes that there's an opportunity here for equal pay. So hopefully we'll see that. But as they say, and I've heard this several times from different workers, Vince McMahon has always paid everyone fairly based on what they draw. I've heard this from multiple wrestlers, both male and female. I'm sure you're going to hear stories otherwise. But I have heard that pop up from time to time. But and you've never heard any issues about, you know, Paul Heyman paying people. man. Oh, let's just say Paul Heyman. He has done a 180. You know, obviously he's a manager, the mouthpiece for Brock Lesnar. He's actually a runner backstage, so he's always really backstage usually. Yeah, coordinating things when he's not managing Brock Lesnar on screen. So. Yeah. He does a lot, and of course, he really, to me, is the one that really put ECW to where it needed to go. And he did some wonderful things. I think he also did some maybe not so great things, but in the end, it sounds like he's made a full, hopefully 360. It sounds like, you know, he's obviously a family man, and he's delivering, and he's helping others get over. Really, without, you know, if it wasn't for Paul Heyman, we would not only have ECW, I think. We wouldn't have actually had CM Punk, which I think on some level that maybe now people don't really like CM Punk for a variety of reasons. Sure. Mainly with the whole recent Colt Cabana thing. Yeah, that's what we understand. I think Colt Cabana's gone on the record about it. Right. So I don't know. We don't know the full story, but I think that is definitely gasoline on the fire, where fans are sort of on one hand ticked that he's kind of up and left. I get on one hand with CM Punk that if you're injured, probably need to rest up, take care of yourself. I have to assume, here's the thing, and I don't really know what actually happened. Something at the Royal Rumble right before WrestleMania 30. I believe that he was going to be booked in a match with Triple H. I felt like that was the direction they were going to go. We're going to see Triple H, CM Punk 2. And it sounded like CM Punk didn't want to work that. He wanted to be in the main events. Which, I don't know. I personally think that a match with Triple H would be a main event as a tech match. But anyway, so he walked out shortly thereafter. He cited it with more reasons like health. that WWE was forcing him to continue to wrestle injured. My thought to that is this, is that I would have to assume that their physician said he could go a little bit longer, but he'll definitely need to be looked at some point because it was WrestleMania season. So my assumption is WWE, they're just like, we want you to hang out for WrestleMania season. Just work, through the Monday Night Raw after WrestleMania, and then we'll give you a couple months off and heal and do everything you need to. I think he said no, and then I think he walked out. But again, that's just my own personal theory, what I heard. Now, it sounds like there was maybe some concussions involved. Again, we don't know the full story yet, but it sounds like, to me, I feel like CM Punk really could have just stood it out a little bit further. Again, I don't know how injured he was at the time. But I honestly think he could have stuck it out. It seems like he really wanted to leave due to injuries. I think they could have given him a limited schedule because it was Triple H who's not wrestling every Monday Night Raw. I think they could have given both a limited schedule, make it more talking, build up to it, and had their match at WrestleMania 30, and then just had a couple months off after that, come back in the summer, a la Money in the Bank or something like that. But now we're in a situation where it's just like, there's court things going on, there's, of course, UFC stint. Anyway, I'm going way off topic here, but maybe I have CM Punk in Legends House. No, that'll never happen.
Wow, that'd be amazing.
Listen, he would not. If anything, his return would be back in the squared circle, which I think it will happen. And I've said this before. They always come back. Bret Hart came back. Alundra Blayze came back. They all come back at some point.
Bruno Sammartino.
Yeah. They will blank check you. At the end of the day, I guarantee you, like Bruno Sammartino, because he's got more money than like the whole world, right? Mm-hmm. I guarantee you Triple H said, listen, I know you're rich, and I know your children are rich, but what about your great-great-great-great-great-grandchildren?
Right.
Do you want them to be rich?
Right.
And he probably thought, oh my gosh, like, they just blank checked him. And he probably at some point realized, like WWE, they've built the wall so high that they are the mecca of sports entertainment.
Yeah.
They really are. Everything is centralized around it. That's both good and bad thing. But overall, I think it's a good thing because you want to keep... Honestly, for the sake of pro wrestling, you need something like WWE to keep pumping it out. Because as far as if we didn't have WWE, we'd have the independent circuit, but I don't know that the independent circuit could pay like WWE. And when you're wrestling and getting injured all the time, you need some money.
Definitely.
For insurance.
For sure. Yeah.
If you get injured, this is the thing, a lot of people don't realize this, but wrestlers, if they get injured, they don't get paid. Now, if someone like a John Cena or Randy Orton that have like these 10-year contracts, sure. I'm sure that's different. But if you're someone like New Day and you get injured, you're probably not making money.
Yeah.
If you ain't working, you're not getting money. So, and again, they're temporary workers, really. They're just contractual workers. They're not full-time employees with WWE.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But
private contractors.
But right? Yeah. Anyway, I know I went way off topic, but yeah, CM Punk would definitely return as a wrestler first. I don't know that he'd be ready for Legends House. I don't think he would definitely do it, but at some point we'll hopefully see that.
Give it time.
Yeah, give it time. So who else you got on your list? Anybody else?
The last person, Paul Ellering.
Huh. Yeah.
I don't know a whole heck of a lot about Paul Ellering, but I thought he would be a good pick. I just felt we needed more non-wrestler capacity people in there.
He is a guy, like, again, I mentioned before about Ron Simmons, how he could sort of hone in and just like kind of tranquilize JBL.
Yeah.
Maybe just like sort of block any type of, or just sort of as far as keep that type of energy at bay. He's sort of the same. Of course, he managed the Legion of Doom, and then of course AOP, I guess LOP, or LOD, right? Legion of Doom, and then there was the Authors of Pain he also managed. But I know he actually, from what I understand, and I think Animal was saying this specifically about Paul Ellering, was that both Hawk and Animal were making so much money as Legion of Doom that Paul Ellering really helped them manage their money as far as how to save it, how to put it in stocks and all that. So he's really a financial guru. So I can only assume he did the same with AOP. And if AOP are not idiots, I'm assuming that they were sponges and just took in everything Paul Ellering could share. So I think that he's got a very maybe categorical way and a very logical way of working with people. So I think that would be nice. But yeah, given what he's been a part of, I have to assume that his knowledge of the industry that spans multiple decades would again be one of those great contributing things to have in a Legends House season 2.
Yeah, totally. Great stories. And again, interacting with the other guys.
Yeah.
And then last but not least, instead of Ashley Roberts or somebody, just have Renee Young host it. Go back to Renee Young, have her host it. I think she could do it.
Yeah, you know what? I have really liked having Renee Young on Monday Night Raw.
Oh, she's great. She's such a breath of fresh air.
Really liked her. And she's really quick. She brings in some really interesting perspective. Is able to offset Corey Graves pretty well.
Yeah.
I liked how she's really sold, because I the entire time I'm wondering, like, everyone's asking, like, well, what about Dean Ambrose? Like, why did he do this? I'm like, why not just ask Renee Young? And so they actually did. They asked her the other night, like, so what do you make of this? She goes, honestly, everyone knows about my relationship to Dean, but he keeps very isolated about that. And that's not unheard of. I am a married man, and there are certain areas I don't talk to about my wife, about certain things in her life. It's a general understanding that she would always tell me if something changed.
Sure.
But there are certain things where it's just like, again, like, we all have our stuff. Sure. And so it does kind of make sense in that world that would actually be something. But I thought she did a good job of selling that. So, I think that she'd be a great host.
And that concludes my list. Come on, WWE, make Legends House too. See, the concerning thing is, like, I remember a year or so back, there was some report or some kind of article I read that said that WWE was kind of moving away from some of the more expensive programming.
Was Legends House pretty expensive then?
I'm guessing it was probably the most. See, the thing about Legends House is apparently that was filmed and edited and everything and packaged into episodes several years before the WWE Network came to light. I guess Vince had plans for some kind of WWE Network thing previously.
Oh, yeah, 2012, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. So I think that was filmed in, like, 2011 or 2012.
Oh,
and then they just had that kind of sitting on a shelf. That's what I think. If anybody knows better, please, leave it in the comments or send us an email and let us know. But that's my understanding of it off the top of my head. So I'm not sure how much it costed at the time. I'd heard that WWE was moving away from some of the more expensive ones. That's why we have shows like the tattoo show or the photo shoot where it's or Table for Three, where it's just you just get some wrestlers in and they talk, and it's not like this big production. You don't have to rent a house and wire it up and cameras and everything. So I really hope that they can make it happen, though, because I thought it was fantastic, and I would be chomping at the bit to see whatever the hell they pick for Legends House 2. Even if it's nowhere near my list, I'm sure it'll be great. If you keep a similar format and you don't overproduce it, you let the guys do what they do and you simply observe. And then, of course, you're going to edit it together to maybe make things more spicy or exciting. But at the end of the day, nothing was faked or nothing was coerced or anything like that, I feel. So I think that's the real key, is to keep that natural nature and just let the boys be the boys or the girls be the girls.
But, to that end, and one thing, I think that's it, right? But one more thing to add to that. I can't believe we kind of forgot this person, but this is someone that I think spans multiple decades. I think every time they talk, they're very compelling. I mentioned this earlier in the podcast, but I think Mick Foley could be a great addition to the Legends House.
Of course.
Why not, right? So,
bada bing.
Yeah, why not? But that's us for that's. I think that's it, right? That's all we got. I think we're out of time.
I think that is essentially it.
That's it.
I think we've said
everything
more we need to say about
everything
these subjects for this particular installment. I want to thank you all for joining us, and please send us some emails. We got to fill up that hot
let's
box.
Be honest. Like, listen, hey, just fucking email us, all right? Just fucking email us. I've asked, even just a small little thing, so we can, because we're trying to be real about this, and I don't want to be like, oh, listen, we got all these emails that just came in. We haven't received a single email. We've gotten 3 emails just from Google saying that, hey, we've noticed a sign in from somewhere. Yeah, it's my phone. I just link my email.
Right.
And you know how depressing it is? Every day I go, there's nothing in our inbox. If you're listening to this, just fucking email us. Just have a good one, folks.
Later.